Welcome back. This is Breezing Through, and I'm Emily. So before we get started, let's talk about my hands. So these are just compression gloves and like a little sleeve underneath for my wrists. My wrists have really been bugging me lately. I've noticed with my son that he's heavy. He's 2.5 and he's about 45 pounds. And so he still wants to be carried like a 2.5-year-old, but that's hard on mom. And so I wouldn't say like really like my wrists hurt and they pop a little bit. And so these are just compression gloves that I put on to help. I'm trying to wear them for extended periods of time and even sleep in them just to help with whatever's going on. I am exploring possibly having Ehlers-Danlos syndrome because other people in my family have it, and since they've redone the requirements for having it, I check off a lot of boxes. So that's something I'm looking into. But anyway, I'm just wearing these to help support my wrists. And can you hear that cracking? Happens a lot. So address that. Okay, so today we're going to talk about parenting with ADHD. Things that have helped me and help me manage that. So if you're new here, I was diagnosed with ADHD at 16. I am now in my 30s and I have 2 kids. One of them is 8 and autistic, and the other one is 2.5 and hasn't been diagnosed with anything yet, but is seeing a developmental pediatrician. Let's go through the list. So the number one thing for me personally is meds. And this is going to change, vary between people. Not everybody can take meds for various reasons. Some people prefer stimulants, some people prefer non-stimulants. Everybody's different. I started taking meds pretty quick after I was diagnosed with ADHD, found a med that worked and a dosage that worked, and I stayed on that until after I had my daughter and after I had my hip surgery. So I was on 20 milligrams of Adderall for about, I'd say 10, 11 years. And then I started seeing a neurologist because my psychiatrist that had diagnosed me had retired, and I didn't want to see a PCP for that. PCPs have their place, but in my opinion, treating for ADHD is not one of them because they're not experts, unless they're an expert in that. So I started seeing a neurologist. He was fantastic. He helped me find a med that worked. We had to go through a couple iterations of meds and dosages. I ended up on My Day Is, which is made by the same people who make Vyvanse. And I take 2 pills every day. So 2 dosages. It's 25 milligram and a 37.5 milligram. I take them at the same time. It's an extended release. So it's not about like taking one and then taking the other one later. It's about getting a dosage that would work for the whole day and would actually help me. When I was still seeing the neurologist, he actually had me on a higher dosage, but he was practicing in Virginia, and we moved from Virginia to Tennessee, and he could no longer see me as a patient. So I had to find a new doctor, and they kept me on that dosage. But when I got pregnant with my second, we had to bring the dosage down to be a little bit safer because ADHD medications increase your heart rate. And when you're pregnant, your heart rate also increases. And so it's really important to make sure that you kind of maintain a stable, it's hard to stabilize that. So when it comes to taking meds while pregnant, I've talked about this on a number of different occasions. I'll talk about it briefly. I was not on meds when I was pregnant with my oldest, because at the time that was the conventional wisdom, is to not take medication while pregnant. Well, right after I had my daughter, like within a month, they came out with a study showing, the effects of ADHD medications on the pregnancy, on the baby, on delivery, all of that. And so now the conventional wisdom is to weigh out the pros and cons of being off meds versus being off meds in comparison to the risks of the medication to the baby, the pregnancy, and the delivery. In my case, when I was pregnant with my second, it was more of a risk to not be on my meds. My oldest is autistic. I really, really struggled when I was pregnant with her, not being on meds, just functioning day to day. And then I also have a history of being in car accidents when off of medication. And so it was deemed better to be on meds than off. And I was heavily monitored. The baby, I actually ended up seeing a fetal medicine doctor, OB. So I was getting scans much more frequently than the average person. And health-wise, he's fine. So meds are number one for me. And so I've stayed on that dosage that they brought me down to since then, and he's 2.5. So more than 3 years now, going on 4. And it's a good dosage. I feel like when I am on my meds, I am better regulated, like my emotions are better regulated. I'm more patient, I'm more attentive. I don't lash out, as opposed to when I'm unmedicated, I do all those things. I'm less patient, I lash out more. I'm not as regulated. I have a really hard time doing anything unmedicated. And so it's just, I'm a better parent and driver when medicated. So the second thing is enough sleep. And this is something that's really important for everyone in general, but especially important for people who are neurodivergent. Sleep really impacts the brain and how the brain functions. And for me, I have found that I really struggle when I don't get enough sleep. And it really impacts my ADHD. And if I don't get enough sleep a number of days in a row, my meds hardly even work. And this was not something I had to deal with my oldest. She was sleeping through the night at 6 weeks old, like 8 to 10 hours, solid. We thought we were the best parents ever. No, actually, we knew better. We knew that was not normal. And then as she's gotten older, she struggles with falling asleep, which is not uncommon for kids who are autistic. They also struggle with staying asleep. They struggle with, there's a lot of stuff that goes on with autistics and sleep. Luckily for everybody, hers is just falling asleep, and that's managed with melatonin. My youngest is a whole different beast. He's never been the best sleeper, just in general. And even now at 2.5, we've been having issues with him. Like, instead of rolling over, just going back to sleep at night, when he wakes up, he comes and gets me. So that's super fun. And some nights are better than others. Like last night, he slept through the night. 2 nights ago, he was up 4 different times. And sometimes he's up for like an hour. I've noticed that when I go multiple days in a row where I haven't been sleeping, I just can't function, and it's awful. So there are a lot of people that are able to manage sleep through medication, through melatonin, through, a number of CPAP machines, because for some reason they have sleep apnea. In this case, it's my kids. Because without my kids, I can lay down and be asleep within 15 to 20 minutes, depending on my hormone cycle. If I'm in the right spot in my hormone cycle, I'll be up all night. That's been happening more and more as I've gotten further into my 30s. So that's fun and a great thing to look forward to. 3 is a big breakfast. I would say I'm like a hobbit in this. When it comes to breakfast, when I get up, I have to eat something. And I've always been this way. I need to eat something right away to kind of take off the edge. Otherwise, I'm like ravenous, or I feel like I'm going to pass out. And then I can take like an hour and a half, and then I need like a solid, good sized breakfast. Recently, I've been doing 2 fried eggs and 2 hash browns from Trader Joe's, and then I season them, and that's a really solid start to my day. And a lot of that is because, everybody needs a high protein breakfast anyway, but a high protein breakfast really helps, again, with brain function. It helps my meds work better. I feel so much better when I've had a good breakfast. And when I don't have a good breakfast, I'm lightheaded, I'm nauseous, I'm hungry, I am flighty, like I can't stay focused. It's never good. All right, number 4 is recognizing when I've messed up and apologizing. And I know that as a millennial, so many of us didn't experience this with parents, but sometimes when I lash out, and that's so common with ADHD, I have to take a step back and go, that was not appropriate, that was out of line, and I have to apologize to my kids and explain what happened. It's never an excuse, but it's always an attempt to explain and show them that it's okay to mess up and to apologize and to move on. And with my oldest, I've been really trying hard to explain what ADHD is and what autism is, and all these and how different people's brains work, so that she can understand how her brain works and how mine works and how that impacts our behavior on a daily basis. And that goes into number 5, which is explaining ADHD to my kids in an age-appropriate way and how it impacts me. So that also goes into explaining it to my daughter and how it impacts her, because she will officially be diagnosed soon, but she has ADHD, and we're in the process of getting her diagnosed. She definitely has ADHD. There's no question there. We're very open about it with her. We talk about it often. I try and talk to her about how it impacts like her daily life and her interactions with friends and schoolwork and things like that. I really, really, really struggled with school as a kid. And I legitimately did not think I was smart. And being diagnosed with ADHD really showed me that it wasn't that I wasn't smart. It's that a typical school setting with no accommodations, having no filter and blurting things out made it seem like I was not smart, because I did not do very well in school except for standardized tests. Knocked it out of the park on the SAT, the ACT, and all of the Virginia standardized tests that I had to take as a kid. Knocked it out of the park really consistently. And then in school, I got bad grades until I started getting medicated for my ADHD before my senior year. And my senior year, I did really, really well. The other reason I spend a lot of time explaining this to my daughter is this helps in situations where I'm struggling with something and she wants me to be paying attention to her and I can't. So, for example, when we're driving, she likes to listen to music in the car. So, one, with someone with ADHD, I'm driving, paying attention to driving. I'm also paying attention to both kids and what they need, what they're doing, what they're talking about. Then my daughter has music on. And then she is 95% of the time talking to me. And because she's autistic, she talks to me and then wants feedback from me in ways that it's hard. She very often will tell me a very complicated story and then go, well, what was your favorite part? And I have to explain to her that my brain is also running through all the millions of things my brain is running through. So I'm driving, I am processing everything in my brain that I am already processing in my head, separate from all of the other inputs. I have the two of them that I'm paying attention to make sure they're okay. And then she's telling me the story. I cannot tell her what my favorite part was. I try my hardest, but not when I'm driving. My ADHD cannot do that. It just can't. And so we talk about telling me those stories at a different time so I can actually respond to her in the way she wants me to respond. Number 6 is embracing my ADHD and how it's exhibiting each day. ADHD is different in men and women. And especially with women, our ADHD is very, very, very much impacted by our hormone cycle. And so there are days where my meds just straight up don't work because it is the first full day of my period. So that's cool. But I know that that is a thing. At least right now. I also know that there are days where, and these aren't consistent days, but there are days where I'll wake up and my meds aren't working and I'm just like, the entire plan for the day is shot. So I have learned, especially with kids, to kind of just go with how my brain is working that day. So there are some days where I'd plan to run errands that day and I'm just like, nope, we're not doing that today. Can't make that work. My brain is not, like, I can't do all of those inputs and take the 2.5-year-old with me. That's just not gonna work. And there are other days where I'm like, I gotta get out of the house. I gotta go do all the things. We're gonna run 10 errands. We're gonna get all the stuff done. I'm gonna come back and he's gonna go down for a nap and I'm gonna cut tons and tons of wood for a project and it's gonna be great. And so I really, honestly, I just embrace what my brain is doing that day and I run with it so that I am able to be the best parent that day. And not every day is perfect. We also have a lot of things in our house for our kids to do on days where I just can't. There are days where I just can't. And so I'm working on my phone. I'm editing videos. I'm doing audios. I'm, working with my assistants. I'm submitting, like I'm doing stuff, but I just cannot leave the house. And so on days like that, we have so much stuff for the kids to do. And I've made sure that there are activities for them. And I've made sure that they have the rooms that they have so that they have places to go and things to do when I can't be 100% on. Number 7 is include and incorporate my kids into my hyperfixations. So if you're unaware, people who have ADHD get hyperfixated on things. And so they can be like really into one thing and really into another thing and then really into something else. That's why a lot of ADHD people have a lot of different hobbies and will buy stuff and start something and then never finish it. If you followed me long enough, you've seen me do a lot of these things. That's why I'm competent at a lot of things. I'm not a master at anything. But what I like to do is make sure I'm incorporating my kids into those things. So for example, building my son's room. I'm doing a big project and it is for my son. And he is participating in helping me build it by being present. Or when I was doing embroidery, I went through a little embroidery phase and I'm kind of still in it. I took a break because things got kind of crazy. And I used to do it when I was helping my son fall asleep. but that was when he was in a crib, and he's not in a crib anymore. And so I can't like safely embroider without accidentally, because I'm like in his bed with him, like on the end of his bed. It just doesn't work as well. But when I was doing it consistently, I did embroidery projects for my children. So they both have multiple t-shirts that I embroidered. And I let them explore what I'm doing. That's why actually DIY is so great. And for me, and you see actually a lot of people who DIY projects, especially women, have ADHD, because it gives us something to hyperfixate on. And there's like an end date, and you do it and you're done, and then you move on to something else. And you can kind of take some of the old, like some skills that you've learned, and build on them and learn new things. Like DIY is really great if you have ADHD for the most part. But I also include my kids in what I'm doing. So I teach them what I'm doing. I let them, participate with me. They're playing with things. I'm teaching them how to use tools. I don't exclude them from what I'm doing. And then number 8, the last thing, is I give myself grace. I was diagnosed when I was 16. I've now been a parent for going on 9 years. And I know that this is how my brain works. And it's not going to be perfect. Most days are going to be hard. And that's okay. And my kids are not traumatized. I know I'm not traumatizing my kids. I know I'm trying, and I'm doing my best. And at the end of the day, they're going to be okay. And so I can give myself a little grace. Hopefully this was helpful for anyone else who might have ADHD and also be a parent. If you like this video, please like and subscribe so you can see more videos like this in your feed, and I will see you next time.